Chapter 1. The Sun-Drenched Cathedral. The memory of that final, thunderous clang of the vault door ceiling is etched into your very bones. A sound that severed you from a dying world and birthed you into a new one. You stood there, a single breath held in a chest tight with a mixture of terror and awe as the immense circular lock ground into place. But as the echoes faded, they were replaced not by sterile silence, but by a soft, pervasive hum, the sound of a world breathing. You took your first true breath, and the air was a warm, living blanket, thick with the scent of loam, of pollen, of water on leaves, a perfume of life after the predicted death outside. Your eyes adjusted to the light, a golden, diffused glow that fell not from a sun, but from vast arrays of grow lamps suspended from the high, arched ceiling. They stretched away into the distance, illuminating a breathtaking, multi-tiered cavern of unparalleled green. This was Vault 22, your new home, a self-sustaining agricultural ark designed not just for survival, but for a renaissance. You were a botanist, and this was your cathedral, your life's work given form in soil and leaf. Your assigned domain was Arboretum 3, a sector dedicated to pioneering drought-resistant strains of maize and wheat. The work was physically demanding, a daily ritual of hauling heavy nutrient solutions, calibrating intricate irrigation systems, and painstakingly hand-pollinating delicate flowers. Your hands, once soft and accustomed to the touch of a keyboard, quickly grew calloused, your fingernails permanently etched with the rich, dark soil. It was a fulfilling exhaustion, the kind that sang in your muscles as you lay in your bunk, a testament to a day spent nurturing life. Your world quickly found its center in the people around you. Sam, the brilliant and endlessly curious mycologist from the fungal research sector, became your fast friend. He had a laugh that could cut through the most tedious of tasks, and an encyclopedic knowledge of the hidden kingdoms of spores and mycelium. He'd show you the delicate, lace-like structures of a new mushroom culture, explaining how the vast, unseen mycelial networks beneath the soil were a secret, intelligent world. A wood wide web, communicating in chemical signals. Then there was Lena, your sector lead, a woman whose wisdom was as deep as the roots of an ancient tree. Her family had been farmers for generations, and she possessed a quiet, intuitive understanding of plants that surpassed any textbook. She taught you to read the subtle language of the leaves. A slight yellowing here indicated a nitrogen deficiency. A peculiar curl, there was a plea for more humidity. Under her guidance, you learned to listen to the garden, to feel its needs as if they were your own. Life settled into a beautiful, predictable rhythm. The communal mess hall was the heart of your social world, a place where the tables groaned under the weight of the vault's bounty. The taste of a sun-warmed strawberry, its sweetness bursting on your tongue just moments after being picked, was a small miracle. Conversations buzzed with shared purpose, with theories on cross-pollination, and with the hopeful dream of one day using this abundance to regreen the devastated world above. In the evenings, You cherished the small, personal plot every resident was granted. While your work was dedicated to practical sustenance, your plot was for beauty. You cultivated marigolds and violets, their vibrant oranges and purples, a defiant statement that life was about more than mere survival. Tending to them, feeling their delicate petals, was a meditative act, a connection to a concept that felt increasingly distant. Nature's simple, unengineered grace. You would go to sleep each night in your small, comfortable quarters. The faint, earthy scent of the vault, a permanent part of your skin and clothes. The gentle, rhythmic dripping from a nearby hydroponic system was your lullaby, a sound that spoke of constant growth and nurturing. Lying there, listening to the hum of your world, you felt a profound, unshakable peace. You were a vital thread in a living tapestry, safe and purposeful within your steel-reinforced Eden. Chapter 2: The Gift and the Unseen Thread. The excitement was palpable when the new research sample arrived, a secure shipment from the pre-war think tank known as Big MT. It was a fungal strain designated Boveria mordicana, heralded as a revolutionary biological pest control agent. Sam was practically vibrating with energy, his section transformed into a hive of focused activity as they began the meticulous process of culturing and testing the promised miracle. The initial results were everything they had hoped for. The minor, persistent infestations of aphids and fungus gnats that had been a constant, low-level battle simply vanished. The plants, freed from the stress of pests, seemed to vibrate with improved health, their leaves a deeper green, their yields noticeably increased. Sam presented his data to the entire vault, his pride infectious. A collective sense of triumph filled the air. It felt like they had unlocked a new, powerful tool for their future mission. It was during this time of celebration that you first noticed a subtle shift in the atmosphere. A new scent began to layer over the familiar, comforting smells of soil and vegetation. It was a sweet, cloying odor, reminiscent of overripe peaches and honey left to ferment in the sun. You mentioned it to Sam, who shrugged it off, attributing it to a new flowering hybrid or the metabolic byproduct of the beneficial fungus itself. The first concrete sign of trouble was the cough. It started in the fungal research sector, a dry, persistent hack you heard from Sam during your breaks. Within a week, it had become a chorus, echoing from different sectors of the vault. Lena came to work one morning with a feverish glaze over her eyes and a pallor that was unsettling. The vault's clinic began to see a steady stream of residents complaining of respiratory issues, headaches, and a strange, pervasive fatigue. A low, thrumming anxiety began to permeate the vault, a stark contrast to the recent optimism. The plants, your constant companions, began to exhibit strange behavior. The vines in the arboretum, which you trimmed with precise regularity, now seemed to grow back overnight, thicker, woodier, and more aggressive. The leaves of your maize plants developed a strange, oily toughness, and the vibrant greens of the vault's flora seemed to darken, taking on a jungle-like, almost menacing lushness. Dr. Alban, the vault's overseer, a man you respected for his calm demeanor, addressed the growing concern over the public address system. His voice was reassuring, attributing the symptoms to a transient allergic reaction, a minor side effect of the new, more complex biosphere. He announced enhanced air filtration protocols and the distribution of antihistamines. You took the pills. You wanted to believe him. But the sweet, rotten smell only seemed to grow stronger, and the cough in your own chest began to feel like an unwelcome seed taking root. Your small sanctuary, your flower plot, began to fail. Your proud marigolds grew twisted and spindly, their vibrant orange fading to a sickly mustard yellow. The violets were the true tragedy, succumbing to a fuzzy gray mold that defied every treatment you attempted. Seeing these symbols of pure beauty, your personal project, wither and corrupt, felt like a personal omen, a tiny death that echoed a larger, gathering storm. The vault itself seemed to be closing in. The cheerful, open atmosphere was replaced by wary glances and hushed conversations in the corridors. The familiar, comforting hum of the grow lamps now felt like the persistent drone of a disturbed hive, and the once inviting green shadows between the plants now seemed to hide a patient, watching presence. The dream was beginning to curdle, and you felt a chill that had nothing to do with the climate controls. Chapter 3. The Patient Choking Green. The sweet, cloying odor became a permanent, thick presence in the air, a taste at the back of your throat you could never quite swallow. A fine, yellow-green pollen dusted every surface, the pages of your books, the utensils in the mess hall, the very sheets on your bunk. You developed a ritual of wiping down your quarters each morning, only to find a fresh, luminous layer settled by evening. A constant, dull headache took up residence behind your eyes, a new and unwelcome part of your waking reality. Sam was deteriorating rapidly. The vibrant, laughing man was gone, replaced by a gaunt, lethargic figure. His skin had taken on a sallow, almost waxy tone, and his eyes, once bright with intelligence, were now glassy and distant, often staring at nothing for long periods. His cough had evolved into a deep, wet rattle that seemed to tear something loose from deep within his chest. When you pressed a cup of hot tea into his hands, his fingers, clutching yours for a moment, were fever-hot and trembling. The physical environment of the vault was becoming hostile. The overgrowth was no longer just an inconvenience. It was an active invasion. Main walkways you had walked daily for years were now choked with snaking vines and thick, rubbery leaves, forcing you to map new, labyrinthine routes through your own home. The maintenance crews, once dealing with simple pruning, now worked with plasma cutters and industrial shears, their faces grim with a battle they were clearly losing. The vegetation seemed to have a mind of its own, a patient, relentless force reclaiming the steel spaces. The crisis reached a tipping point. Lena called an emergency meeting for Arboretum 3, her face a mask of controlled panic. She confirmed what everyone feared. The Boveria mordicana had mutated. It was no longer a targeted pesticide. It was a pervasive pathogen. The order came down from Dr. Alban himself. The fungal research sector was to be placed under immediate and total quarantine. You stood frozen in the corridor as the heavy, reinforced bulkhead door to Sam's section screeched down from the ceiling. Its final, resounding crash on the floor, a sound that severed you from your best friend. A physical manifestation of the fear now dividing the vault. Life became a series of grim, isolating routines. The mess hall lost its communal joy. The food, even the freshest tomato, now carried the faint, sickening undertaste of the spore-laden air. The conversations were hushed, paranoid. People you had known for years began to eye each other with suspicion, tracking every cough, every sniffle. The community that had been your strength was fracturing into isolated, fearful individuals, everyone a potential carrier of the blight. You tried to find solace in your work, in the familiar motions of tending your maze, but even that was a torment. The plants felt alien now. Their stalks were unnaturally hard, their leaves sharp-edged. You found yourself pulling away from their touch, a deep-seated revulsion growing where there was once only care. The Arboretum was no longer your cathedral. It was a chamber of horrors, a gallery of beautiful, monstrous things that were slowly consuming you. The sounds of the vault changed. The gentle hum was now layered with the constant, unsettling creak of growing vines, the soft, wet pop of a new mushroom cap erupting from a wall panel, and the ever-present, echoing chorus of coughing that seemed to emanate from the very ventilation shafts. It was a symphony of sickness, a soundscape of a world dying from the inside out, and you were a captive audience, forced to listen to its grim progression. In the deepest part of the night, huddled in your bunk, you would hear faint, frantic scratching at the sealed bulkhead. You knew, with a chilling certainty, that it was Sam. He wasn't trying to get out. The scratching was erratic, mindless, the sound of an animal, not a man. You would press your pillow over your head, trying to block it out, but the sound seemed to seep directly into your skull, a stark reminder that the person you knew was gone, and what remained was trapped just a few dozen feet away. Chapter 4. The Purge and the Screaming. The first power failure was a heart-stopping moment of absolute terror. The lights died, the hum ceased, and you were plunged into a blackness so complete and silent it felt like the void itself. For 3 agonizing seconds, you floated in nothingness before the emergency lights flickered on, casting the overgrown corridors in a dim, bloody crimson. The panic was immediate and visceral. The life support systems, the very heart of the vault, were being strangled by the relentless growth they had been built to sustain. Dr. Alban's voice crackled over the intercom, stripped of its usual calm, replaced by a grim, metallic resolve. The situation was critical. The fungus was not just a pathogen, it was reanimating biomass. The word sent a frozen spike of dread through you. He announced a final, desperate measure, a controlled purge of the infected sectors using a flammable, pressurized gas, followed by ignition. It was a scorched earth policy, a bid to sterilize the outbreak at its source. You thought of Sam, trapped on the other side of that door. The image of his fevered face, his intelligent eyes now vacant, flashed in your mind. This wasn't a rescue mission. It was an extermination. You felt a wave of nausea, so powerful you had to lean against the wall. You were about to be complicit in the murder of your best friend, and the horror of that knowledge was a physical pain. You and the other, clean residents were herded into the reinforced central atrium, a place normally reserved for celebrations. Now, it felt like a holding pen. The air was thick with fierce sweat and the relentless, sweet smell of the spores. You held onto Lena's arm, her face a pale, stony mask. Then came the sound, a deep, pervasive hiss as the gas flooded the quarantined sectors. It was the sound of finality. A deep, muffled whump reverberated through the floor, shaking the very foundations of the vault. The ignition. For a fleeting moment, there was a collective, hopeful silence. Had it worked? Then the silence was shattered. It wasn't a sound of pain, but of pure, undiluted rage, a concerted, shrieking roar from behind the bulkheads, a sound that was utterly alien and deeply, primally terrifying. The fire had not cleansed, it had enraged. The reinforced bulkhead to the fungal sector, warped and glowing cherry red from the intense heat, burst inwards with a shriek of tearing metal. From the billowing, acrid smoke, they emerged. The Spore Carriers. They were horrifying amalgamations of human form and grotesque fungal growth, shambling and mindless, with glowing, vacant eyes. The vault descended into a nightmare of strobing red light, screaming, and the terrible, wet sounds of violence. You ran. There was no thought, only a primal instinct for survival. You ducked and weaved through the overgrown corridors, the plants now seeming to actively grasp at your limbs, trying to hold you back for the things that shambled behind you. You didn't know where Lena was. You didn't see Dr. Alban. You were alone, your own ragged breath and pounding heart the only things you could hear over the distant, dying screams. You found a small, forgotten storage closet tucked away in a remote maintenance corridor. You fell inside, slamming the door shut and engaging the manual lock, plunging yourself into a blessed, absolute darkness. You slid down the door to the floor, your body trembling uncontrollably. In the silence of your tomb, the only sound was the echo of that collective shriek, a sound that you knew had forever scarred your soul. The dream was not just dead, it had become a monster. Chapter 5. A final, peaceful assimilation. Time became a meaningless concept in the absolute blackness of the closet. You had no food, and your water came from a slow, condensing drip from a cold pipe on the wall, which you caught in your hands. You slept in fitful, terror-filled bursts, your dreams a chaotic reel of Sam's healthy laughter juxtaposed with the sight of the shambling carriers, and the scent of burning sugar and flesh. You were awakened not by a sound, but by a sensation. A fine, powdery dust was sifting under the door, accumulating on the floor in a faintly luminous yellow pile. The sweet, rotten smell, which had been muted by the door, flooded your sanctuary, thick and overwhelming. You fumbled for a rag, tying it around your nose and mouth, a pathetic and futile gesture against an enemy that was no longer just outside, but was now infiltrating your very lungs with every breath you took. The cough you had been suppressing finally broke free. It was a deep, convulsive event that racked your entire body, leaving you weak, gasping, and tasting copper on your tongue. Your throat was raw, and a profound, heavy pressure began to build in your chest, as if your lungs were slowly being filled with wet, warm moss. A fever ignited in your veins, making you shiver violently despite the stifling heat of the cramped space. Your thoughts, once sharp with fear, began to soften and blur at the edges. The terror was still there, but it was distant now, muted under a growing, vegetative calm. You found your mind drifting to your flower garden, to the simple, perfect beauty of the marigolds and violets in their prime. You hoped that in some corner of the vault, a seed of that pure, unengineered beauty had survived. That memory became a tiny, bright point of light in the consuming darkness. Your last connection to the world you had tried to build. A strange numbness began to spread through your limbs, a heavy, pleasant warmth that started in your core and radiated outwards. The itching, fibrous feeling in your chest ceased to be an irritation, and instead felt like a gentle weaving, a reknitting of your being into a new, quieter form. The frantic hammering of your heart slowed, its rhythm becoming deep, languid, and then fading into a soft, pervasive silence. The last of your human senses registered a gentle pressure. It was not painful. A delicate, phosphorescent mushroom, no larger than your thumbnail, had pushed its way through the skin of your still hand, its pale light a soft beacon in the dark. A tender, pale vine, sensing the faint air current from a vent, had gently, almost lovingly, pried your lips apart, seeking the carbon dioxide of your final, shallow exhalations. You did not fight it. The struggle was over. The fear was gone. There was only a profound, peaceful stillness, a sense of returning to a vast, quiet network of life. You were no longer a dweller, a botanist, or a victim. You were becoming part of the garden, the soil, the flora, the final, silent harvest of Vault 22. The green had not just won, it had accepted you. And in the deep, patient dark, it continued to grow, now with you as its foundation. And so, the story of Vault 22 ends not with a bang, but with a whisper of spores on the still air. It serves as a haunting reminder that even the purest of dreams can be twisted by a single, unseen thread, and that nature, when pushed beyond its limits, can reclaim its dominion in the most gentle and terrible of ways. Let this tale be a lullaby for the ambitious and the hopeful, a quiet lesson learned in the deep, green dark. May your own dreams be fertile and your gardens grow true, but may you always remember the delicate balance between nurturing life and being consumed by it. Good night, much love. Gaming lore for sleep. We'll see you next time.